Paris, 1911. Bustling city, the Louvre Museum, packed with masterpieces. But one of them's gone missing. Yeah, Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa vanished into thin air.
It sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it?
Straight out of a heist film.
Yeah.
Today we're diving deep into this whole Mona Lisa heist story. The twists, the turns, and how it turned this painting into, well, the icon it is now.
It's a story that never gets old, does it? But before we get into all the details of the actual theft, maybe we should step back for a second and talk about the painting itself. A lot of you probably already know this, but way back in the early 1900s, the Mona Lisa wasn't exactly the super famous painting that it is today.
So fill us in. What was it then, before the heist, before it became so well known?
Well, Da Vinci started painting it in 1503. And you know what? It took him over 15 years to actually finish it. But even back then, it was considered a masterpiece, especially because of how realistic it was and Da Vinci's amazing use of this technique called sfumato. Basically, he blended the colors so subtly, especially around her face and that smile, that it makes this sort of hazy effect.
Right, that's what gets me about the Mona Lisa. That little smile, how she seems to be looking right at you.
Yeah.
Didn't any other paintings at the time do that?
Nope, not really. It was totally groundbreaking for its time. So after being owned by a bunch of French kings, the Mona Lisa finally ended up in the Louvre Museum. People in the art world really liked it, but it wasn't like a global phenomenon or anything. But then August 1911 rolls around. Vincenzo Peruggia, this Italian handyman who'd actually done some work at the Louvre.
Wait, hold on. He worked at the Louvre. That's an inside job, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What's crazy is, if I'm remembering right, they didn't even notice it was missing for almost a full day. Is that right?
You got it. Imagine that happening today, right? The Louvre staff, they went a whole 28 hours without realizing the Mona Lisa was gone.
Unbelievable.
Vincenzo, he used his knowledge of the museum, how the security worked, and all that to his advantage. Monday morning, museum's closed for cleaning. He slips in unnoticed, pops the painting out of its case off the wall, and just walks out with it hidden under his work clothes.
Hang on a sec. How heavy was that frame? I can't picture someone just strolling out with the Mona Lisa like it's nothing.
Well, from what they say, the frame itself weighed almost 200 pounds. And there's this theory that Vincenzo might have had help from these two brothers, Vincenzo and Michel Ancellati. They also worked at the Louvre, but nobody's ever been able to prove that for sure. But either way, it was one daring heist. Super well planned.
So then Vincenzo stashes this priceless masterpiece in his apartment, right? In a secret compartment in a trunk. He even wrote to his dad saying that the family's money problems would soon be over, so he was obviously planning to sell it. But why wait 2 years? What was he waiting for?
That's the question, isn't it? Maybe he was hoping things would cool down, or maybe he just couldn't find the right buyer. Whatever the reason, in 1913, Vincenzo decides to try his luck in Italy, figures it might be easier to sell the Mona Lisa there.
So he packs it up and takes it on a trip back home. That's gutsy. This is like something out of a movie, like that George Clooney one.
With Ocean's 11.
Exactly. But more like Vincenzo's 11, if you count those brothers. So what happened? Tell me what happened next.
So Vincenzo reaches out to this art dealer in Florence, Alfredo Geri, tells him he's got the Mona Lisa and wants to sell it. Geri's naturally a bit skeptical, so he contacts Giovanni Paggi, the head honcho at the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, to help him figure out if it's the real deal. They set up a meeting with Vincenzo at his hotel.
No way. He brought the Mona Lisa to the Uffizi. Did they even let him in?
Well, Poggi and Geri, they take a look at the painting, and yeah, they're pretty convinced it's authentic. But they've got a plan. They tell Vincenzo they need to get things ready for the sale, ask him to hang tight at the hotel.
I bet they went straight to the police.
You know it. December 1913, Vincenzo's arrested at his hotel. The Mona Lisa is safe and sound, and the world breathes a sigh of relief. But here's where it gets really interesting. At his trial, Vincenzo claims he did it out of patriotism, said he believed the Mona Lisa belonged to Italy, Da Vinci's homeland, wanted to be seen as some kind of hero, bringing a stolen treasure back where it belonged.
Did anyone believe that?
Surprisingly, yeah. A lot of Italians saw him as a hero. His sentence, 7 months, that's it. I mean, remember, the painting was missing for over 2 years. People in Italy were just thrilled to have it back. They practically threw him a party. They even put the Mona Lisa on display in a few Italian galleries for about a month before sending it back to the Louvre in January 1914.
So in a way, Vincenzo actually got what he wanted. Not the selling part, but the whole bringing it back to Italy thing. Sounds like he became quite the celebrity.
He did, but then there are those letters to his father, the ones about all the money he was going to make. Don't those tell a different story?
They do, don't they? Sounds like Vincenzo's reasons might have been a bit more complicated than just patriotism.
You got it. And that's just one piece of the puzzle. There's so much more to this story.
Wow, this is already way more fascinating than I ever imagined. Who knew there was so much to this whole Mona Lisa thing?
And we've barely scratched the surface. What's really wild is how this crazy scheme, this theft, actually made the Mona Lisa world famous.
It doesn't make sense, does it? Stick with us, folks. We're going to dig deeper into what happened after the heist and how Vincenzo Peruggia, a handyman, accidentally turned the Mona Lisa into the most famous painting in the world.
It's funny, isn't it? Like a crime made the Mona Lisa a star.
Yeah, you wouldn't think a scandal would be good for a painting. But in this case, it kind of looks like it was.
Exactly. Think about it. This heist, it caused a huge media frenzy. Newspapers all over the world, they were covering it, putting the Mona Lisa on their front pages. The public, they were hooked. Suddenly, everyone was talking about this painting that, well, most people hadn't even heard of before.
It's like they say, any publicity is good publicity.
That's it. And then when they finally found the Mona Lisa, people just went crazy. When they put it back up in the Louvre, everyone wanted to see it. The painting that had the whole world talking.
I've heard it's still like that today. You could barely get close to it because of all the people. Have you ever seen it?
I have. It's really something else, even if you only get a quick glance. But yeah, the crowds are insane. You can barely see the painting itself, let alone all the details.
It's a shame, really.
Hmm.
Vincenzo Peruggia, in his own way, he wanted to bring the Mona Lisa back to Italy, but he ended up making it almost impossible for anyone to actually enjoy it.
That's a good point. It's almost like its fame has kind of overshadowed the art itself.
Yeah, it's like we're more fascinated by the idea of the Mona Lisa than the actual painting.
Maybe. But you can't deny it, the Mona Lisa is a masterpiece. And Da Vinci's genius went way beyond painting. Did you know he was an inventor too?
Oh yeah, that's what I find so interesting about him. Flying machines, tanks, things that wouldn't exist for centuries. He was a real visionary.
Way ahead of his time. But I think his real passion was capturing people, the human form. I mean, that's what makes the Mona Lisa so special, that mysterious smile. It's no wonder people are still drawn to her.
It shows you the power of art, doesn't it? Speaking of power, let's talk about how this whole thing changed, how we think about art, how we protect it. The Mona Lisa heist must have been a wake-up call for museums, right?
Absolutely. It showed everyone just how vulnerable museums were back then. Can you believe they used to let photographers take paintings off the walls up to the roof for photo shoots?
Really? That's insane.
Crazy, right? Think of what could have happened. But after the Mona Lisa was stolen, everything changed. Museums had to step up their security, invest in new systems to keep their collections safe.
So in a weird way, Vincenzo Peruggia, the thief, actually helped museums become more secure.
Ironic, isn't it? But there's another side to this we should talk about. How much money people are willing to pay for art.
You mean the art market? And how the price of pieces like the Mona Lisa has gone through the roof.
Exactly. The fact that Vincenzo Peruggia thought he could sell the Mona Lisa for millions, well, it says a lot about how some works of art become like valuable products, you know?
It's crazy to think how much it would be worth today if it was ever auctioned. It'd be astronomical. But isn't the value of art kind of subjective?
Well, yeah, to some extent. But the Mona Lisa shows that publicity plays a huge role in how we see value. All the news coverage, the mystery, the drama, it all made the Mona Lisa something truly special.
That's true. All that attention, it elevated the Mona Lisa to another level.
And it shows you how stories, how we tell them, can change how we see and value the world.
So we've got this priceless painting, a daring thief, an international manhunt, and then boom, it becomes a global icon. But there's something else I keep thinking about. What does this whole story tell us about how we relate to art, you know?
That's a great question. The Mona Lisa heist, it makes you think about how we value and protect art. It shows how fame, even if it comes from something bad, can make a painting more than just a painting. It becomes a cultural phenomenon.
It makes you wonder what other treasures are out there, hidden away in museums or someone's private collection, just waiting for their chance to become famous.
Who knows? Maybe there are other masterpieces just waiting for their own crazy story to make them famous. Or maybe, just maybe, there are amazing works of art still to be created, things that will blow our minds.
That's an exciting thought. The world is full of beauty and art we haven't even discovered yet. It makes you want to go out there and find it, you know?
It does, doesn't it? There's a whole world of art out there waiting for someone to appreciate it.
So I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the Mona Lisa heist for now. We talked about the painting, the crime, Vincenzo Perugia, and how all this turned the painting into a global icon. What were your main takeaways from all this?
For me, it's the power of stories. How something like a theft can create a story that still fascinates people over 100 years later. The Mona Lisa heist wasn't just about a stolen painting. It was about national pride, ambition, deceit, and how fame is often, well, manufactured.
I agree. And it reminds us that history is full of these fascinating stories, all intertwined, that shape how we see the world.
Definitely. Sometimes those stories are even more interesting than fiction.
Well said. For our listeners who want to learn more, I'd recommend checking out the life and work of Leonardo da Vinci. He was a true Renaissance man, a visionary whose genius wasn't limited to just painting. His inventions, scientific studies, writings about art and nature, it's all fascinating stuff.
I agree. Da Vinci's work is like a rabbit hole. There's always something new to discover. And if you ever get the chance to go to Paris, visit the Louvre and see the Mona Lisa for yourself.
Even if it's just for a few seconds, just watch your stuff and maybe skip the handyman outfit. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those minds working.
Well said.
Thinking about this whole Mona Lisa heist and what came after, it strikes me how ironic it all is. Vincenzo Perugia, just a regular handyman, he wanted to make a statement, maybe out of patriotism or greed or, who knows, a bit of both. And he ends up changing the entire course of art history.
It really shows you how even the best laid plans can have consequences you never expect, consequences that reach far and wide. I mean, who would have thought that stealing a painting would make it a global superstar?
It makes you wonder about all the twists and turns that shape our world, right?
Yeah.
What if Vincenzo had never stolen the Mona Lisa? Would we even be talking about it today with this kind of reverence? Would it be this icon, this legend?
It's hard to say for sure, but it's an interesting thought. Maybe the Mona Lisa would just be another masterpiece, respected but not really known by most people, just something for art historians and collectors to appreciate.
And this goes beyond just the Mona Lisa, doesn't it? This whole thing makes you question how fame works, how we decide what art is valuable, and how just one event can grab everyone's attention and change our whole cultural landscape.
You got it. The Mona Lisa heist is like a textbook example of how stories work, how mystery is captivating, and how fame can be totally unpredictable. It reminds us that history is shaped by things we can't control, by chance, by people taking risks, and by the stories we create about the world.
And those stories, they keep us fascinated, they make us curious, and they challenge how we think about the past, the present, even the future.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Mona Lisa heist, I want to encourage you, our listeners, to keep exploring these stories, to dig into the history of art, to visit museums and galleries, and to keep those minds of yours active and curious. You never know what hidden treasures or unexpected connections you might find.
Well put. And if you're looking for a good place to start, I'd suggest learning more about Leonardo da Vinci. He was a genius who did so much more than just paint. Science, engineering, anatomy, he did it all. He was a true Renaissance man, a visionary who still inspires us centuries later.
Couldn't agree more. Da Vinci's work shows us what the human mind is capable of and reminds us that searching for knowledge and being creative can lead to some pretty amazing discoveries.
Well said. That's all for today, folks. Until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those imaginations going.
And who knows, maybe one of you will be the one to uncover the next big art mystery or find a hidden masterpiece that will amaze the world. Until then, happy exploring.